Hi everybody, I'm Collin Raye, and I'm real happy to be here doing an interview that I never thought I'd get a chance to do. A lot of people don't realize, but I started out as a bass player when I was a kid, and that's really the instrument that I'm probably best on. I'm not as what I maybe used to be, because the old fingers don't do that, but that's really my instrument of choice, and so it's really cool to get to do an interview with Bass Frontiers. Awesome magazine. For me, the first bass I ever played was a Kent that my dad gave me. My dad is a bass player, and straight ahead country bass player. I mean, he played everything with a 4/4, boom, 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 everything, even if it didn't belong. And so he got a Fender, and he gave me his Kent and an amp, and I, it was so rickety at times. We had to get like bread wrappers, the bread twisty things, to keep the E string from popping out of the groove down there. But I learned how to play. My brother taught me your basic patterns, and learned it pretty fast. And so that was my first bass, and then I thought I'd just hit tall cotton when I got my first Fender bass. It was a Fender Jazz. Had the skinnier neck down at the end, and I found that was a little easier for me to manipulate my hands. I'd played a couple of buddies' Precisions, and they're fatter down at the end, so I had a difficult time when I was younger, manipulating that in. So I liked the Jazz bass, although I thought the P bass maybe had a little better sound, a little better tone. So that was, and the sad story about the days when I was a kid, we had guitars often. And we were very trusting, my brother and I, and we'd play a nightclub, a honky tonk, and would ask the club manager, say, can we leave our gear here overnight, And of course, oh yeah, it's fine. And on three different occasions, we walked in and our guitars were gone. And of course, when you're just a bunch of long-haired teenage kids, police weren't very interested in filing a report or doing anything about it. They basically said, well, that's what you get for leaving it, So we'd have to go in. In those days, I didn't have much money at all. So I mean, you had to go get you a new instrument. So that you'd immediately go into debt right off the bat. But when you want to play, that's what you got to do. And so over the years, I had a number of basses. And then when, I should say, to be honest, I never really thought I would be a solo act, with a guitar or no guitar out front singing. I always wanted to be in a band. My dream was to be in a Eagles type band that did country rock and roll, or rock and roll with a country edge, and be the singing bass player. That's what I wanted to do. And in the band I had for so many years, the Rays, or the Ray Brothers, and then it just became the Rays, my brother and I, our band, through the course of time, I'd start losing members. They'd give up. This guy'd give up and go back home, and this guy'd give up and go back home. And then eventually my brother did. And next thing you know, it was me and a bunch of guys I barely knew. And my manager at the time said, "You really need to be the guy out front. Let's just sell you, so to speak." And I was kind of hesitant about that, because I'd always been uncomfortable with the idea of being the guy. I always wanted to be in a band. But it worked, because shortly, about a year after we started promoting ourselves that way, I got a record deal, and the rest is history, I guess, or whatever. So because of that, I became more of a rhythm guitar player, and so I rarely get to pick up a bass and play anything. And so therefore, it's just like a bicep. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. You have to keep playing, or you start to lose a lot of your feel and just the technique, and your fingers don't automatically do muscle memory and do like they're supposed to do. So probably not very good anymore, unless it was something really straight. But other than one little period in my career where I actually took the bass back just a few years ago, because I'd lost my bass player and we didn't really have anybody, but I had a surplus of guitar players, and I was like, well, I'll play bass for a while. So I got me a little mic, a Garth mic, a Madonna mic with a headset, and got it back pretty well. I had a Spectre that I got to say was probably my favorite bass of all time. I actually had two, a burgundy one and a white one. And I had seen Sting playing a white Spectre on his American tour, and then I saw McCartney doing a world tour, and he had a Spectre. And I thought, well, that's where he went back to the Hofner. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And in rock and roll, you'd had singers that fronted the band playing bass, but as far as I knew, in country music, there had never been an artist front the show playing bass. And so I kind of enjoyed doing that for a while. It was a lot of work because, you know, as a bass player, you can't let up. You can't stop playing and, you know, and do this, or you have to keep both hands on the instrument at all times. And so it definitely limited my ability to you know, to do certain things on stage or whatever, but I felt like I was part of the band again, and that did feel really good for a while. But eventually we thought, well, let's get a better bass player than me, and I'll go back to doing what I normally did. And but I have to say, if someone would ask me what's my favorite bass, I got to say the Spectre was my favorite, because it was the size of it, it was lightweight, and especially at a time when I picked it back up, I was already over 40. And again, I don't have arthritis or anything, but my hands weren't as nimble as they were when I was in my teens and 20s, and so it was a very easy bass for me to manipulate and move my hands up and down the neck, and easier down where you spend most of your time anyway, which is down at the far end of the neck. Love that Spectre, and I'll finish my little diatribe here with both of those basses, as it turned out, were stolen. so the moral of the story is, I guess I wasn't meant to play a bass, because whenever I do play, my basses get ripped off. But that's a sign that you have good basses. If you got a crappy bass, nobody's going to want to steal it. So anyway, that's my story, and I still love the instrument. When I listen to records, that's the first thing I listen for, is the tone and the sound, and listen to that bass line. I guess it's just in my blood, and I miss playing, but thank goodness we have a lot of great bass players out there that I get to work with and have over the years. And so thanks for watching, and thanks for checking out Bass Frontiers. It was a pleasure to be on.